Hey guys, welcome to this basic intro. I'm going to run you guys through some of the introductory sort of features of Mixer to get you guys started. When you first arrive in Mixer, you'll be asked to select from a template or create a new scene. I've created a new scene, and what you're going to see first is this row of tools, and some of the basic options are to drop in like a point light, a spotlight, or like a skylight where you can do reflections. A lot of that's being taken care of automatically from the Environments tab, so you won't need these starting out. Additionally, we've got rotation tool, camera tool. You've got the Pro Edition, you've got the PTZ camera, undo, redo, and save. On the right side, we'll see a scene outliner, a details panel, a material editor, and the camera control tool. You'll also see the Note panel, and this is where a lot of the animation, data inputs, MIDI controls, OSC controls, and LFOs will live. Under the LFOs, you have a couple different options from triangle, sawtooth, and square waves. You have the option to increase or decrease the amplitude, which is the size of data that will be routed through the nodes. We'll set this one to 100. Or frequency, the higher the number, the quicker the waveform. The lower the number, the lower the waveform, which translates into like a slower motion. These nodes are routed into the control panel on the bottom, where you can drag and drop these nodes and the data that's flowing through them into different variables. Within the nodes panel, the mode lets you do a drop down to sample audio from the line in, a master mix, which is your system audio, MIDI, joystick, and in the next step, we'll be releasing a beta version of OSC input. On the far right, we'll see additional options in the next update that's coming in 1.2.2. We'll have generative AI, including real-time Gen AI through Stream Diffusion, an Environments tab to affect the background, as well as a Post-Processing FX tab where you can do things like bloom, chromatic aberration, lens flare, and color grading, as well as other post-processing. In the Pro Edition, this is where the PTZ controls live, and then the content browser. It's probably where a lot of you guys will be doing your work. So if we go into the FX folder, you can drag and drop different types of effects, like the spiral tool, brighten up the scene again. Got the swarm tool, which I use a lot, which is a particle system. And there's some pre-installed effects as well. And some of these I'll be using quite a bit in the future tutorials. Over here in the scene outliner, we'll see these different objects populated to the scene. And in the main viewport, we can use our keyboard and mouse to move around the 3D environment. If you select one of these objects and go to the Details panel, you'll see additional controls and variables that you can use to animate and modify the objects within the scene. Also in the content browser are materials, and these are different shader effects. You can drag and drop these onto objects, or you can drag and drop them into the material editor where you can manipulate and control different variables so that the materials can be animated as well. You see it's loading. That took just a second. You may think Mixer's crashed, but it's just loading. So that's a quick introduction to the main interface. I'm going to delete some of these and get a clean scene again. We'll go back to the content browser, and I'm going to select some basic shapes. So I'm going to drag and drop this cube into the scene, the cylinder, and I think we'll grab like a sphere. So let's find a sphere in this. Another cylinder with a little cavity, and a sphere. I'm going to zoom in on these guys. Manipulate, move these within 3D space. You can do rotation, and you can scale things up and down So this little toolbar here is a very handy setup within the main viewport. One of the things I like to do is to center the objects back to 0, 0, 0 by hitting the undo button. I'm going to reset the scale as well. Set all these back to 0, move them out a little bit. All right, so we've got a couple basic shapes. So within the nodes, I'm going to change node 1 to be the master mix. And so now you can see it's analyzing my voice. I'm going to deselect the different ranges within the frequency so that we're only analyzing the bass. If I go back to our scene and select the sphere, I'm going to go to the transform and select location. And I'm going to drag and drop node 1 into the Z. And as you can see, it's not doing too much, but we can adjust on a per parameter basis how much the audio input is going to affect this. So I'm going to multiply that quite a bit. So all the different per parameter levels are set on basically divisible by 2. And in this way, you can keep things quantized to the beat if you're doing, say, beat matching for audio. Then to the right of this, it's showing an arrow to the right. That means the input coming in is going to be added to the value that's here. Right now it's a 0, we can set that to 10 or 100, and move that up on the z-axis. If we want the audio input to be reversed, we can hit the back arrow, and that will negate the values coming in. And the x with the forward multiplies forward. So this has a much larger effect. So we're going to be multiplying the input from node 1 times 100. And that's quite a bit. So I'm going to dial back this multiplier. And as you can see, we now have this ball bouncing up and down. I'm going to play some music real quick. Let's press play. So that's how you start to get some very simple audio analysis within the scene. For this one, I'm going to select the scale. And rather than dragging and dropping, you can also right-click and select the nodes based on their color labeling. So for this one, I'm going to select node 3. And for node 3, I'm going to have this one sample only the high end. And so if we go back to the 2, and in our details panel, you can see that we're multiplying by 1, and we can see bouncing up and down. Let's increase that a little bit. Let's turn our music back on. That might be just a little bit too much. Let's drop that back a little bit. All right, back to our music. We'll pause that. For this object, we've got a grid texture, and I think we want to change that up. So let's drag and drop our gold texture that we just created as a material instance. So for this, a lot of the different parameters can be adjusted. How much shininess and roughness. We can also drag and drop that and attach it to a node. This value is clamped between 0 and 1. So we'll want to have a fraction of the audio input because it's going to be coming in probably around like 50 to 100. We check right now, this is analyzing, giving us a value between 0, it looks like we're clipping out a 7. So on the material editor, let's divide that. All right, let's say maybe an 1/8. So if we watch, we can actually see the shininess changing within this material. And that way you can start to create some very cool material shader effects that are animated by either a MIDI controller or audio analysis or one of our LFOs. So on node 2, we've got a square wave, which is really kind of like on or off. So it's either 0 or 100. Let's select the sine wave again. And now we've got this like nice, smooth, sweeping motion. That's great for things like rotation. So let's select the cylinder again and go to rotation. And we'll drag and drop node 2. And you know what? On the z-axis, we're not going to see too much. Let's actually put that onto the y-axis. All right. So let's scale that up a little bit. Drag and drop again. I think I actually selected node 3. Let's change that to node 2. We now have a rotation. Scale that back down. And you can see this rotation should get to a point and then reverse as that value goes up and down. Scale that up a little bit. And now we've got some simpler rotations for this one. Let's drag and drop node 2 onto the z-axis. We'll scale that up a little bit. Now we've got a couple different rotations, as well as audio analysis driving the animations within our scene. This is really the core interaction within Mixer, and how you'll animate and build more complex animations. All these effects can be applied to the FX particle systems and other effects. We've got this particle system here. Look on the right side, you've got the particle size. We can scale that up to 5. And we can attach that to the audio analysis so that these particles scale up and down as I speak. I'm going to multiply that. Check, 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 test, 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 test. And we're going to set this particle system back to 0 so it's close to our other objects. I'm going to zoom back out. Now I've got this particle system. I'm going to delete the other objects, clean up our scene. So I'm going to turn the audio back on for a minute. Not seeing too much of an effect. I'm going to go back to particle size, and I'm going to make this much bigger. Still not getting too much. Drag and drop the node back on particle size. There we go. Now these particles are bouncing in time with the music. If we want to make this more interesting, I'm going to scroll down to curl noise strength. If we set this to 0, the particles will just sit there. If we go to something really large, like 25,000, they'll move around in a smooth but turbulent fashion. So I'm going to attach node 1 to this so that the bass is driving that. Maybe dial it down to 10,000. And I'm going to multiply the value coming in. Test, test, test. Let's turn our music back on. We'll fine tune this. If this scaling effect is a little distracting, dial that down a little bit so we can focus on the curl noise string. Let's go and dial that up. I'm going to drag and drop point lines to the scene. And set that to 0. Now we've got kind of a moody effect. Take this light, change that color to red. And, we should expand the attenuation radius so the light casts further, up to 1500. Yeah, that background's kind of red. Let's try something different. Maybe we'll go for a green. There we go, that's kind of cool. We'll drop an additional light. Add a little bit of accent. Set this into blue. Set that to 0. And I'm making it a value of, say, negative 200. Up to 800. One is a better value. All right, so now we've got an interesting looking particle system. So I'll run you through some of the basics of animating shapes, creating materials, adjusting nodes, creating audio analysis, and plugging that into different variables of your objects and effects. And that's really the basics that underpin all of Mixer's core animation and scene creation. All right, guys, that'll do it for this tutorial, but I look forward to providing more information. If you guys have any questions, please hit us up. Thanks.